When a pass is completed, the software loads the path for the next level. In this way, the entire design is completed step by step. Now you can see on the screen. The middle part of the design is complete. Now the outer border carving is in progress. This part is a bit time-consuming, as there are more loops, arcs, and sharp turns. The machine cuts 0.3 millimeters deep per pass, so the wood texture remains intact. Now, if you pay attention, you'll see tiny wood particles falling down the machine, which are like very fine dust. This dust is telling you that the tool is working very well. The dust collector is also working together to keep the surroundings clean. During this step, the operator pauses the machine from time to time, blows air through the nozzle to remove wood particles. This results in a clearer cutting line and more accurate subsequent passes. Now the time is around 25 minutes. We can see that the entire middle of the design is complete. Now we will proceed with the last step of border cutting, which we call the final pass. In this pass, the tool goes around the entire design and cuts away the excess wood on the outside. This separates the entire artwork from the piece of wood. As you can see, the machine is now on its final round, slowly rotating around the wood, and with each rotation, the edges of the design become more distinct. This moment is always exciting, because it is now clear how perfect the whole job has been. Now the cutting is almost finished. The machine head is rising. The spin is stopping. The design is complete. The operator now stops the machine and picks up the piece of wood. Look, a perfectly clean, smooth surface. Every line has been perfectly drawn. Now this design will go into the sanding and finishing section, which we will see in the next episode. This was our third episode of CNC wood carving. We have now reached the most delicate and interesting part of the work: detail cutting and shaping. In this step, the CNC machine slowly, precisely carves out every corner, curve, and line of the wood. As you can see on the screen, the tool head is now rotating very slowly, cutting through the wood at a rate of a few millimeters per second. The speed is not kept too high in this part, because a small mistake here can mean the entire design is ruined. So, the machine RPM is now around 8,000, and the feed rate is kept very low. Now notice, the designs inside the curves are gradually becoming clearer. These fine lines are being created with a 3mm ball end mill tool. The machine is working, and with each rotation, a unique work of art is being created on the wood. You can see the little patterns, leaves, flowers, and lines emerging one after another. That's the real magic. What we designed in the software is now becoming a reality on this piece of wood. Now let's zoom in a little bit. At this point, you'll notice how perfectly the machine head follows each curve. According to the program, it is now doing a detail pass, meaning it is working again in detail on the previous rough cut, so that the surface is smoother. The color of the wood is also changing slightly at this stage, as heat is generated by the friction of the machine's spinning tool, which gives it a light brown tone. This color also often adds depth to the wood's design. Now we are using the finishing tool, a curved tip with a diameter of 1.5 millimeters. This tool is very small, but its function is very important. It cleans up the small parts under the curve, the corners. If you look closely, the layers of the entire design are slowly taking on a three-dimensional shape. It's not just cutting. It's like awakening art from within the wood. Now let's see how the toolpath is progressing in the software monitor. These green lines show the movement of the tool. Each line represents one pass of the machine. This tool is used to create delicate curves, flower petals, and leaf designs. The operator is carefully changing the tool, setting the Z-axis again. The machine is checking again whether the tool is in the correct position. Everything is ready. Now the real carving will begin. The machine slowly descends onto the wood. Now watch, the flower petals are being cut. The speed of the tool changes with each curve. One moment faster, the next slower. That's the beauty of CNC. Precise, even and perfect. Every line, every curve emerges from the wood exactly as it was designed. The sound that is heard now is the real sound of wood cutting. Light, but powerful. Now we can see that the entire middle of the flower is done. The vacuum pipe is pulling the dust from the nozzle of the machine, so that dust does not spread around while working. This part is the most delicate. Here, the cutting depth per layer is only 0.5, and a small mistake means a design disruption. So every movement of the machine is controlled by software with millimeter precision. Now comes the leaf shapes. Look, The veins of each leaf are coming out beautifully. At this time, we can see the tool is turning in one direction, and then suddenly changes the angle and goes in the opposite direction. In this way, the CNC is creating depth like light and shadow from every direction. Gradually, the entire design comes alive on the wood. The cutting process is now about 70% complete. The operator is carefully watching to see if there is any extra cutting. Sometimes, if there is a small error, the machine stops instantly. That is the safety feature of CNC. At this time, we see the machine stopping in one place and then resuming its path, as if the entire job is perfect. Now that the entire flower part is finished, the machine is going to the border. The border carving begins. It creates a kind of frame around the edge of the wood. Once the frame is finished, the whole design looks brighter and more professional. After the machine is finished, we will see that a magnificent three-dimensional design has been created on the wood, as if handmade, yet with complete mechanical perfection. That's the end of this episode. In the next part, we'll see how the design is further refined through finishing and polishing. Rotated. If everything is okay, we now press the start button. CNC machine starts up. First, the spindle rotates at high speed. The cutter slowly descends onto the board, and the first pass begins, cutting the wood from the very top layer. Notice that the machine head changes direction very steadily while the cutter is running, not even a millimeter off. In the first pass, the machine only cuts the outline of the design, the outer part of the flower and the outline of the leaves. At this time, the smell of wood is spreading, fine dust is swirling in the air. A dust collector is set next to the machine to keep the workspace clean. The machine is slowly moving forward on each part of the board, as if an artist is painting with a brush. Now the second pass begins. This time the machine cuts deeper, the design becoming clearer. If you look at the screen, the center of the flower in the middle of the board is slowly taking on a three-dimensional shape. You can tell where the deep cuts are, going by the rhythm of the machine's sound. Now the layers are forming, beautifully across the entire board, as if the design is emerging from within the wood. In the first 10 minutes, we only saw the basic cutting and outline finishing. In the next part, we will see how CNC machines create fine curves and micro details. Now the machine stops for a few seconds. The tool will be changed. Work will begin on the next part with a finer tool. Now begins the dry run, or preview run, meaning the machine will go over the entire design without any cutting. At this point, you will see that the tool is moving rapidly over the wood, but is not cutting any wood. This helps us understand whether the alignment of the design file and the machine is exactly right. If the design goes outside the borders in any place, we adjust the settings. Dry run is over, everything is fine. Now it's time to change tools. First, we are using the flat end mill. This tool is mainly used to smooth the surface or clean the background. The operator is changing the tool manually, and now we see the tool being clamped tightly in the spindle. Now in the software, we are setting the spindle speed, about 16,000 RPM, and the feed rate to 600 millimeters per minute. After checking all the settings, the machine's start button will be pressed. The machine's motor started. A light hum, then a slow rotation. Watch the tool descend onto the wood, the first layer being cut. The machine will cut at a very shallow depth in this layer, so that the surface of the wood remains smooth. After each pass,